All right. So we'll do a quick roll call. Joining us virtually today, we have Nick Brash and Jeff Latcher with Tara from the city. Here at City Hall, we have four Tourism Society staff, Alana and Travis, Richard, myself, Beverly, and Choir. I know. I looked at you and I'm like, Dawn, Tracy, and Lawrence. And joining us as a guest today is Jamie Hilton, the Museum. Tara, if you could note on the minutes, please. They were sent out with an incorrect adjournment time. So it was adjourned at 13:45, but I think we were actually 14:45. Did anybody else have any comments with regards to the minutes from the last meeting? They were hefty. Okay, do we need to wait for that to be reissued? Okay, so we will, if I could get somebody to move the minutes from the last meeting, Lawrence, and second, Tracy, and all in favor? Great. With that, there was a declaration of pecuniary interest from Lawrence with regards to, I'm assuming, the Oklahoma Trails Network. Okay, so we have received that. Oh, okay. No, I didn't get that.
Next that one regarding the Salty Marine Trust.
Okay, so we have one from Nick with regards to Salty Marine and one from Lawrence with regards to the Oklahoma Trail Network construction. Travis, over to you for a tourism overview and update, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Beverly. So I'm going to run through a couple of quick items. Just a reminder for everyone, we have the Deloitte workshop next Tuesday on the 23rd from noon until 2. It is basically a visioning session. They want to collect everybody's opinions and perspectives on where we should go as a board and as a community as it relates to tourism over the next 5 years. So that'll be an in-person workshop. We're hoping that it's really fruitful. So would appreciate if you can make your best efforts to attend in person. Oh.
So you had a typical meeting?
Yeah, sorry. Distracted by the Amber Alert. Yeah. So that's one item. The other one is the visitor guides will be in distribution, will be at the hotels prior to the long weekend. We've structured them much as we did last year, where we continued them into 2024. So the first quarter and beyond is covers 2024 as well as 2023. So those should be great. We think it's really strong. Great picture of Miss Marie on the front cover. So looking forward to having those out and distributed.
And the maps as well.
And the maps as well. Yeah, so that's perfect. The other one, Richard and I just came across this. So there's two issues that kind of triggered my review of the management agreement with Tourism Sault Ste. Marie in the city. The management agreement actually, the term expires in July of this year. So we're going to go, Richard and I have a meeting on Friday just to do a preliminary review of the management agreement, identify anything that, we may want to kind of, or I guess in theory, I should talk, but you guys may want to, address in the management agreement, and then we'll start those discussions with the city. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that. One of the items that caused me to review the agreement was our purchasing department was redirecting the contracts to city staff for approval rather than following the terms of the management agreement. So kind of had a bit of a back and forth there. We believe that we've resolved all that. What the outcome is they would like resolutions for some of the larger contracts, which we hadn't had to do in the past, but that's part of the reason why there's resolutions for the two contracts for the mountain bike trails, part of the Oklahoma Trail Network. So in addition to that, we've got some other work that we need to do to clean up on the finance side. We're still struggling to get the data that we need to report in terms of expenditures. We know we've got our own internal tracking, We know that we're within budget, but we're not getting the information that we need with respect to some of the revenue that's being generated from the interest in the accounts, as well as got a clear sense that the MAT transfers are happening, but we're just not getting that on a regular basis, and we need to clean that up. So,
And quite frankly, we're not getting.
that's exactly what it is. So quite a bit of frustration across the board on that one. So we'll clarify that. So with that, I'm going to dive into a presentation. I thought it would be worthwhile for some new board members to go through kind of the work that we've been doing on the mountain biking before we bring the contracts forward. So Tara, if you can bring that up and
She controls it unless you want to,
okay.
she can,
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about the vision and strategy for the mountain biking because we've had a couple of developments over the past few months, and a lot of these stem from the work that the previous board has done. So next slide, please. So really where we established here was there was a really strong trend in terms of the growth of cycling across the board. We saw about a 331% increase in interest through Destination Northern Ontario. We've seen a substantial, and that's on their consumer facing website, substantial amount of revenue generation tourism in and around Lake Superior, particularly on the southern side. We're now seeing it on the north. Thunder Bay is the best example. They just invested 1.5 million in their trails. So our goal is to really build out the network to have enough high quality trails to keep people here for 2 to 3 days, plus to look at increasing the number of events that are reliant on trails. You can go to the next one, please. So background, in 2020, Tourism Sault Ste. Marie commissioned a trail master plan. It looked at the area as a whole and how we could grow mountain bike network here, provided some advice in terms of the tips that we would need to draw visitors in from out of town, and provided a cost estimate and estimated number of kilometers for construction. So the total cost, or the total number of trails that the master plan had recommended was 44.5 kilometers of trail for a cost of approximately 2.7 million. Now, this was pre-escalation and inflation, what have you. So we began implementing the plan in 2021. We built about 12 kilometers of trail in that year. And then in 2022, the city and Tourism Sault Ste. Marie committed an additional 700,000. It was 360,000 from the city and 340,000 from Tourism Sault Ste. Marie. We had resolutions that support staff to apply for additional grants, both from the province and from the feds, based on the money that we had. We were able to leverage, and we were successful in those grants to the tune of about $1 million. So we currently have about 1.7 million in funding for the execution and development of new trails. So we have certain requirements under the grants. We're required to complete the section of trail between Farmer Lake, and I'll go through some of the maps in a second here, and Crystal Lake. We're responsible for developing a youth skill zone in and around Crystal Lake, or sorry, Kinsman Park. And fortunately, the Kinsman have also developed a pump track there. So what we're looking at doing is really trying to target the family market. And some of the, when you look at the scale of, clients or visitors that we would have, the bulk of the market is kind of in that green to blue rider, similar to downhill skiing. So trying to build our network out. So the bulk of the trails are in that kind of classification. And then we'll have some bigger features. So you see the marketing in Whistler, it's always the Black Diamond stuff, and then kind of the family features, because everybody thinks they can ride Black Diamond. The other big one for us, and we feel that this is really important, is we're going to put a bridge over the Root River in the area of Wishart Park. So it'll allow us to connect the trails from third line on the hub trail straight to Kinsman Park. And the primary driver for that was it would now allow individuals to stay directly, at the hotels, hop on their bikes and ride straight up to Hiawatha, which, I think is great overall. It also tires them out, so they'll be able to ride less trails in a day. And will act to, hopefully extend their stay. So, and it's a unique feature. Not a lot of places have that. So, I'll go through it a little bit more, but talk to you a little bit about the vision there. The next slide, please. So I'm just gonna, I guess these guys on screen aren't gonna be able to see it, but in 2021, sorry, Jeff and Nick, I could be able to see this. In 2021, we began constructing the trail from, this is Connor Road 6 line. Our standard Hiawatha ski trails, the crystal system are right there. We've made it to Farmer Lake and we've upgraded some of the trails in this region. It's been really well received. We've been getting a lot of feedback. When we were at the Outdoor Adventure Show in Toronto, Richard Jones and I talked to the individual next to us, had a clicker. It's just over 2,000 people, and I'd say 80% of those coming in the booth were interested in bike trails. Our next portion of work for 2023 is to connect from here to Crystal Lake, as well as build out additional trails on the Crystal system, which we'll talk about in a second, and the Skills Park area here. We'll go to the next slide, please. So this is a picture. This is kind of the picturesque marketing that we're doing. This is the area at Farmer Lake where the trail kind of comes to right now. I was invited to speak at the Cycle Tourism Conference down in Toronto earlier this year. And, when people from Southern Ontario saw this image, like there was an audible gasp. So it's nice that we're getting these marketing features behind it. Go to next slide, please. So this is the area. I don't know how many of you cross-country ski or cross-country skied the Crystal, but this is the trailhead at Kinsman Park. In this vicinity here is, I guess right here is where the Kinsman built their pump track. We're building out a kids zone here. It's kind of excellent because there's an ice cream shop right there. Hopefully it'll be licensed in the future. So we'll be able to keep, individuals in that area. Even if the parents don't ride, they can drop their kids off. They can hang out at the ice cream shop. The kids can kind of tire themselves out. And I would say same thing. They use this area to kind of tire themselves out, like even myself. And it doesn't allow you to do as many trails in a day. So it's kind of a nice extension. And then we're going to build out in this region and all the way back down to the pond or the reservoir. We can go to the next slide, please. So this will be some of the elements that we're hoping to build. We've got, this is a concrete pump track, but the images that we have are very similar to what we have for the earthen pump track that's out at Kinsman Park. We're establishing some new flow trails, which are really arguably some of the, if not the most popular trails. Those are the ones that seem to get the most attention. And then we'll be developing, hopefully in the future, a little jump park there. So it's kind of captures, you've got the green, the blue, the black. So you're able to get, anyone from a small kid all the way up to an expert rider throughout this entire region of trails. Go to the next slide, please. So the big portion that we're trying to do, the yellow is the hub trail. This little red trail here is the new mountain bike trail that the cycling club's building right next to Finn Hill. Here's our entire cycling network all the way through the Red Pine. We've got the river here. And what we're doing is we're coming through Wishart Park and connecting directly onto the hub trail extension and then right in. So to allow anybody staying on the North hotels, all the way down to the waterfront, will be able to ride along the hub trail. So off-road paved up into Hiawatha. So we think this is a pretty unique feature. And the big thing from a marketing perspective that we want to do is we've got the trailhead sign, but we'll actually be able to have a sign right there that says to the downtown, which will be great. We'll go to the next slide. The big piece with this is it'll allow us to, it'll be 4 seasons. So we'll have, the mountain bike trails, conventional mountain bike trails in the summer, but we're also grooming in the winter. And fat biking is becoming a growing trend. We have about 60 kilometers worth of trails here, which is close to the highest, if not the highest concentration of trails in Ontario. So we're starting to see, we're getting a lot more outreach through the website and through social media about fat biking. And it's nice because it's transitioning our investment from a summer season investment to a 4-season. And you can see this is on the hub trail. So you can go through the hub trail, and what we like to see is bikes parked or right near some of the establishments that can spend some more money. Yeah.
You say you're going to be grooming portions of the hub trail?
We are not, but it is packed enough that people are able to ride it right now. The cycling club's having discussions with the city about grooming their trail in the winter. So there'll definitely be like a unique kind of mountain bike design trail along the hub trail. And then the hub trail itself is ridden all year, even though it's not groomed.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the next slide, please. And apparently just on that, apparently there's foundational issues with the hub trail, because it was talked about, one of the counselors wanted to groom it for cross-country skiing, and they didn't do, there's not sufficient fill below the asphalt, so it's really susceptible to freeze thaw, and that's why they don't groom it. So where we're at today is after the funding that was announced last year from the city and Tourism Institute St. Marie, we undertook a competitive bid process. And we had basically the trails that we had identified. There was about 9.3 kilometers of trail, including the extension from Farmer Lake to Crystal Lake, and some upgrades, Conservation Authority and Kinsman property in the Crystal Creek Trail system. So the approximate length of those upgrades are about 9.3 kilometers. And then once we became aware that we were getting additional funding from one of the agreements that's going to be signed today, or the board's going to be authorizing Richard and Beverly to sign, is the Infrastructure Canada agreement. We went back out for a smaller RFP this year. We intend to do a much larger one either later this year or early next. Now the 2023, going back to 2022, in 2022, we awarded the contract and it was signed with Pre-Cambrian Trails. They were awarded a contract up to $561,741 plus HST. And that was for the full 9.3 kilometers. In 2023, Tourism Institute St. Marie conducted another competitive bid process, this time for about 1.3 kilometers. A good portion of that was to develop the kids zone, as well as another trail, and completion of another trail adjacent to the Crystal Creek Trail system. So Holocene Trails Company was a successful vendor and was awarded a contract with value of almost 51,000 plus HST. After we award these contracts, there's still another 1.1 million remaining for the construction of trails. And what I've added as the last point is going back to the issues that was recently identified by our purchasing department. The board is going to be asked to authorize the chair and secretary, so in Pre-Cambrian's case, to re-sign the contract, and Holocene to sign the contract. But we need a board resolution for that. We'll go to the next slide, please. So just quickly, I'm going to talk about some quick wins that we've had in terms of some of the economic impact. So generally, independent travelers are the biggest portion of out-bike visitors to a community. They're also the hardest to collect specific data on. We've looked at a number of cases. Probably the best case scenario would be to buy cell phone data. It's about $30,000 per year, and then you put a ring fence around Hiawatha and identify where individuals are coming from. The issue that we're in talking with TELUS and others is you're now seeing, because we have a lot of Southern Ontario migrants, their numbers are still Toronto based, or wherever else based.
Oh, my 647.
Yeah. So it's becoming more and more challenging. So we're looking at potentially doing some spot checks and surveys in the parking lot. We install trail counters, but same thing, we're not able to draw where those individuals are from. But so excluding those independent travelers, when we do the economic impact analysis, just from events and from some of the free marketing that we've received, the dollar value from the marketing. As of 2022, we generated about $535,000 from the trails, and that includes approximately $50,000 in terms of earned media. And we determined that because I had Richard Jones evaluate what it would cost for us to purchase this media. And the number that we came up with was $50,000. So some of the notable ones, there's a guy, Tyler Goodtrails. He's got a very popular YouTube site, so we get about 30,000 views on that. Mountain Life magazine did a feature article called Bike Town, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario's newest mountain bike hub. We ranked number 3 on an awesome MTB survey of Ontario trails. And then we had Red Bull actually did an article, 14 best mountain bike trails in Ontario. There's a bunch of other areas where we were referenced, but I just didn't feel the need to add those as well. One of the most notable ones, and this was, we did purchase this, but it comes with the clause that even though we purchased it, not everybody is able to. So we worked last year with Pink Bike, which is the premier mountain bike publication in the world, with really heavy concentration of followers in the Midwest and throughout North America. We did a feature called First Impressions, where they came to Sault Ste. Marie. They brought a mountain bike influencer, and they tried the trails for the first time. Incredibly well received. The fact of the matter is, Pink Bike won't go to any location. You have to have a certain number of trails, caliber of trails, and different type of trails. So it was good that we were able to. Kind of funny that you're willing to pay somebody and they're not always willing to come, but we were fortunate that they were. The other one that was interesting, we did a Canadian cycling summer feature with Charlotte Patty, who's a mountain bike influencer. She puts on a lot of programming for women, almost exclusively in Southern Ontario. After coming, she scheduled some of those courses in Sault Ste. Marie. So it was nice to be able to kind of influence her enough that she felt that the trails were of high enough quality that she wanted to draw people here for those courses. We'll go to the next one, please. So in terms of quick wins for events, last year we had the Beaver Freezer, which was also replicated this year again, Crank the Shield. We had a number of women's weekend camps where they were drawing people in from outside of the community. We had a dirt series, which travels around North America, that he opted to select Sault Ste. Marie as another area. And when we pulled together, probably missing a couple here, but when we pulled together the economic impact based on our time model, it generated roughly 495 or 485,000 just from that, plus the 50,000 from the marketing. This year, and it's going to be on the TDF, is we've got a Trails Fest happening later in July, Salty Marie. Plus, we've got replication of a number of these camps, and a number of I mentioned we already had for Cruiser. So we anticipate these just from events alone growing year over year as the events become more recognized and better represented, and we'll start drawing additional traffic. So we're pretty happy with the, from the numbers that we're able to draw, we're pretty happy with the economic impact that we are seeing. In addition to this is more of my community development role, but we do know definitively of a family from Mississauga that relocated here specifically from the trails, and they've got young children. So you look at the economic impact of buying a house, their salaries going into the economy, the other broad purchases. We definitely got way more than we've invested already. So hoping to continue that trend. I think that's the end, but yeah. So any questions on any of that matter?
I have a silly question.
Yeah.
Or see, for example, I have a guest who has a fat bike, but it's an e-bike. Is he allowed to be on the trail?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And you're seeing more and more people on e-bikes. So I think we see that as kind of like a trend going forward. So looking at, kind of adapting our trails for e-bikes.
Okay. Let me take it up for ride. I think it goes up to 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I can imagine when there's some of those hills that fast.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. That might not be as effective for our bridge over the whole plan was trying to keep them here longer, a little e-bike, yeah, it can fly around a bit quicker.
Really good, like, it's great to see that got a whole new target audience. But you can't avoid the conversation about safety with bikes being stolen. And whether we have the influence as the tourism group to continue to push the city and the police to help us with the amount of thefts that are happening with bikes. It's really hard on our reputation.
Yeah, it's a big issue. We've been putting, like, so I've got, in my group, the environmental sustainability coordinator, so there's a fund that you can apply for anything that reduces greenhouse gases, so cycling falls within that. And what we've been trying to promote is individuals applying for, like bike shelters. So there's bike walkers, yeah, exactly. So, a large part from a community perspective, to motivate people to actually commute to work, but would also be applicable for hotels for protection. So the one unfortunate part is we don't have sufficient funding in that fund to buy everybody a bike walker, and it's kind of first come, first serve, but yeah.
What does a bike walker cost? And how many bikes does it have?
Depends on what you go with, but you know, anything from a like you hire a contractor to build something, so they have these prefab ones. You know, I'll have to get back to you. I don't want to give you a number.
That's okay, I thought it was
They're quite expensive and they don't hold a time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we started in the $12,000 to $14,000 range when Terrace had information.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Because we were doing our bikes vacation.
Mhm.
yeah, if you could, stand by it.
But what we're, like, I know a lot of the groups are applying and using that money to get a contractor to do something. So, because you're right, I think they're around 12 grand. So,
Just wondering, what do the hotels do for people that want to bring their bike?
Yeah, we have room. Yeah. Like I just had, I just had a couple of their bikes in last week.
We have a small conference room that we really feel, too small to have any conferences, so we have to put them, bring them in there, lock them up.
We have a guest lock up area. They're accessible from the outside. So
we're looking at, sorry, just on that, just to probably add to your point, kind of the average cost of a good bike now is like what most people would show up with is between 5 to, I would say, close to 8 grand. So the prices have gone up quite a bit because of the technology involved. So that's, I think, the primary driver why people are very concerned about their mountain bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The hard part is to get them to understand without
Yeah.
putting up the red flag that they should bring their bikes in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, no, they're locked, they're on the truck,
Yeah.
they're fine. I'm like,
No.
no, they know how to get it.
Yeah.
They're gonna get it.
Yeah.
They can leave them outside, they're gonna steal it.
they seem to have a hard time with the claim blocks.
Well, their plant blocks are really difficult to transport.
Yeah.
Right, and they're damaging to your bike if you have a carbon fiber frame.
Yeah,
It's
trade-offs, right?
yeah. And I'm wondering, Richard, do you allow them to bring bikes into the footplane to be secure, or?
Jamie's here.
Jamie.
Do we allow them to come in the bush? No, because we don't have good storage space. That's something, if there's a site being 65,000 square feet, we have no room. But we do have a walk up.
it's a real, I think, cultural issue. Like even here, our bike walker or bike rack is next to the provincial court, which, like, I come here and see the individuals, not all, but the individuals going to that court. And despite the fact that they just come out of court, that's not going to stop them from stealing a bike.
Right.
Based on the behavior that I've seen. So we've been trying to push for, anyways, the long and short of it is I think it's an education piece and awareness, cultural change. That
I didn't ride my bike today because I didn't want to lock it up here.
yeah,
I bring it to the college, I bring it inside. If I go to stores, I use a large lock, but I've not done it.
yeah,
So I totally get your point. I agree. We
To be
need
fair, I've
to
got
do something.
staff that ride and we don't want to.
And if I brought my kids down the bush plane, I would not be comfortable locking them up in front of the door. I'd want to bring them around to the back, or maybe have to get a key to get through that gate or something where it could be locked up in more either a hidden spot or a visible spot.
I think we all recognize, like, I think the bikes are one aspect of what we're dealing with right downtown Florida. And, obviously an incredibly complex issue, but we are, like, putting my city hat on. But, we are in constant, I think, communication with the police, and I do know, the chief always raises the issue about the bail system. Because for most of the time, they don't even bring them up to the police station despite thefts occurring. And I understand that the feds are looking at that to kind of change that, and I don't know that will solve everything, but I was at a restaurant, the guy went right through the front window while I was eating, and the cops were like, we're not sure we're gonna bring them up to the police station, or if we do, we'll just bring them up there and do paperwork back up.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than just Bill C-75. And I've been in plenty of meetings and working groups with the police, and it's a bit of an excuse now.
Yeah.
To say, well, they're not even gonna get to bail, so we won't bother. And that's what's happened. They put their hands up and said,
Yeah,
They know they can get away with it.
yeah.
that's a fair point.
Okay, anything else with regards to the mountain biking? And I think to be noted, thank you to the applications that went forward to really maximize that money that we put forward, and an extra $1 million. Incredible.
Mhm.
So thank you to the team that put those grants forward. I know that they're not.
If I could just say.
One more thing.
I think Travis needs to be commended on this, because he is up there almost every night, laying these trails out, inspecting, meeting with companies. I was up there coaching last night, and Travis was up from 6 till 8, meeting with contractors and, inspecting these trails. So
Nice work.
awesome work.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
I was just gonna, one quick thing I had to add, just slightly off topic. I heard cell phone, and I had to comment that I think you can get that data for a lot less than 30K. I think you'll find, you'll find like $10,000 vendors, and that has applications well beyond the mountain biking issue.
Maybe I'll circle back with you, Jeff.
Yeah. All right, that was it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so if there's nothing else with regards to the tourism update, welcome, Jamie. You're next on our agenda for an update from the heritage sites.
That better?
Stand back here.
All right.
The camera will pick you up.
I will go over there.
I can, you want to continue?
You can read my operational things.
No, I'm good. I heard enough.
Okay. Hello. So, thank you for letting me speak. I really am excited to be able to present to the tourism board and to Nick and Jeff.
Mhm.
Excellent. And Jeff on the other side. I'm sorry if you can't always see me. If you don't already know, I'm Jamie Clifton. I'm the executive director of the Bush Plain Museum, and I've been there for about 1.5 years. We wanted this opportunity to kind of speak to the tourism board, because we really are a tourism product, which is a big tourism driver. We have been the #1 attraction now for quite a while. And we do really believe that we are bringing quite a value to the overall tourism product. Next slide, please. So to start, how many of you have actually been to the Bush Plain in recent memory? Recent memory?
We were all there quite a bit.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's good to hear. A lot has changed there. If you haven't been there since about 2020, and this still happens on a pretty daily basis when we get events. coming in to do tours. A lot has changed. The event center has moved to the back of the facility. It's a much larger area now, 16,000 square feet. There's a new kitchen. And there's been a lot of movement of aircraft and so on. So there's been quite a bit of change over the past few years. So as I said, we are the Sioux's #1 attraction. We brought in 44,711 visitors last year. That's between paid admissions, group admissions, and also events, which we do quite a few events, and we'll get into that in a bit. Out of that, 1,045 were students, which was great to see. We were still in a lockdown in January, so being able to see the value of having an education coordinator come on and develop programming that drove student attendance was really nice. And we expect that number to continue to increase in 2023. We get a lot of out of town visitation. So it's maybe a little known fact in Sault Ste. Marie, but about half of our visitation overall, out of paid admissions comes from out of town. So we saw about 19,200 visitors from out of town between admissions and events. So those kind of community events we do for in out of town. We had over 23,000 itinerant paid admissions in 2022 and about 3,150 group admissions. So cruises kind of dropped off last year. We had a lot of cruises on the book, but unfortunately they couldn't get across the border with all these lovely rules that the government held on to until October. So we did not see as much there as we expected, but we still bring in quite a bit of group, and we are trending in positive directions. So out of our about $1.2 million budget this year, we generate about 70% of our own revenues. That's through gift shop, admissions, and all kinds of things like that. That means about only 30% of our revenues actually generated from government sources. And altogether, we through the Trime tool, we generate about a $2.2 million contribution to tourism to Sault Ste. Slide, please. So in 2020, Etobicoke moved into our building. We were open a whole of 9 days before COVID just took a whapper and closed our doors. So they didn't really have an opportunity to take off in our facility. There were many challenges throughout the pandemic for both operations that impeded revenue generation, but also there were some relationship concerns, I think, that existed between both parties until probably the past. So in the last year since I've arrived on site, we really have worked with Atomica and continue to develop a really good relationship with them. We have done some unique things with them. So we have always sold birthdays at the Bush Plane, but we started a new product this year called the Adventure Birthday. And so it combines both time in the Bush Plane and also time in Atomica, which Atomica generates revenue from. We only launched this product back in February, and thus far we've had 17 joint birthdays, so we are seeing some revenue from that. We also got an opportunity to do our first joint full partnership community event together, a fundraising event. So that was the Easter extravaganza in April. Now, this was kind of a play on an event that John had already been doing for a number of years, but through a brainstorming session with my staff in October, they said, we got to do something with pets because people really like their pets. And boy, did they. We saw about 1,200 people come through the doors that day, and that generated some good funds for both sides of it. So, really nice to see that work together. Next slide, please. So as I said, we do a lot of community events. Though thus far in 2023, we've had about 5 client organized major events and 3 large-scale Bush Plane organized events. We've got more coming. There's going to be Bush Plane days. We are taking the craft show this year to the next level. It's the biggest craft show in Northern Ontario. Feel we can get away with that. So there's lots more to come. We've also done a lot of small to medium sized kind of programming and events that are for our young people, generally at a pretty accessible cost. So an example of that is we have our Sunday Fun Day movies, where we put on kind of a children's movie, and we have our little canteen with some snacks open and popcorn and things like that. And that only costs $5 a person or free for members. So it's a low barrier activity that people can do. You can see Bonsu there. We partnered with Bonsu and Billy this year. The polar bear dip, which I think worked out tremendously. I know you guys saw much higher numbers. It was a win-win for us because it just brought bodies in the door. And frankly, in February, if I can get bodies in the door, I'm happy. Next slide, please. One of our major focuses in 2022 and 2023 is programming and education. So it started quite shortly after I got hired. We ended up hiring in education at the time, education assistant. He's since been promoted to education coordinator, and that is Tim Murphy, a little known name you know. So he came on, and his task has basically been to create interactive, engaging programming, particularly around the grade 6 theory of flight program, but also curriculum-based programming that could be used for any grade level between K and 8. And he has thus far done that. He's receiving excellent feedback from school, and we are continuing to work on that. In fact, we just had a conversation or a tour of the MNRF the other day at their emergency operations center, and they are very interested in helping us continue to develop content and activities that we could use in future sessions. So we are seeing more and more kids. Kim is also developing better tours. So we created a standard tour that is now going to be offered regularly. So the public, any tourist off the path can come in, pay their admission. If they want to pay a little bit additional, they can get a roughly 35-minute tour of our basic bush plane history. And we have more and more staff that are able to deliver that. So we're trying to add kind of those regular products that anyone can buy into. Helps generate revenue for us, but it also helps create that consistency that the tourists. The guys in the buses. Sure. In addition, coming from my history in hospitality, we have quite a few buses booked this year. I think we've got 40 on the books right now. We have standardized our products throughout. Our guides typically are volunteers, so we have been working with those volunteers again to create that standardization of the product, so that every bus tour is experiencing the same thing. In addition, we have created new policy procedure for how we create those bus tours, so it's going to be a little more hospitality driven. And we have a much better organization for how we handle tours. A lot of our tours are actually bus dinners. Yep. So primarily in the fall season, we are seeing a pickup on product where we provide, essentially we're working with Grand Garden, so we provide the catering for the buses, and they also get a tour and an experience in the planes. And that's gone pretty well. So we've created this packaged price point, and so far I really haven't had anyone that maybe one bus tour give me any eyes about it. So that's going pretty well, and I think it'll be a really interesting product going forward. We have also had the wonderful ability to invest in programming this year. So programming is slightly different in education in that it's more open to the general public. So we were awarded a Brazilian Community Grant through the Ontario Trillium Foundation. And that allowed us to hire a program coordinator whose sole purpose is to come up with children's and seniors programming to basically bring bodies and really try to build that concept of us being a community hub. So that is a major focus for us. So the children's programming throughout the winter is ending now. There was a preschool program, there was a Sunday afternoon program for kind of school-age children focused on STEM activities and so on. What has been the biggest win though has been the seniors. So we do Walk With Us Tuesdays. Today is the last one, in fact. And we brought in upwards of 140 seniors on any given Tuesday. It was free of charge for them. Little known fact, you do one tour of the Bushman, that's 200 meters. So they would walk around that Bushman over and over. I'm probably going to repaint the floor soon. And so we thought when we started this, oh, let's start with a kind of a communal goal, you know, create that social activity. And we had the goal throughout the winter season to make from Sault Ste. Marie to Pickle Lake. Does anyone know how far that is? No. Roughly 1,200 miles. Well, we got to Pickle Lake in under 5
Jeez.
we scrambled, and decided we were going to go to Fort McMurray instead. So we are now, as of today, 9 kilometers away from Fort McMurray. So I expect us to land there today. We are going to have a cake and celebration, and we did reach out to Fort McMurray and ask for a welcome message, but you know they didn't get back to us.
We got a lot of forest fires in Lake.
Yeah, I know. But you know, this is giving us an opportunity to connect with a different demographic. The seniors absolutely love it. I think next year we're going to really expand that program further. My one regret is not charging, at least to me. And what's really been special, so in the Bush Plain, we have the White Pines Field School. Now, the White Pines Field School is for kids who have challenges, who would not make it in the normal school setting. So they're high school students, they come to White Pines, they have a teacher, they do some classroom stuff, they learn things like budgeting, and they learn practical skills like going to clean our facility. So it's kind of a win-win. But because we had this programming, we were able to get them more involved into baking and creating menus and serving coffee, things like that. They were interacting with the seniors. So it was really a win-win-win all around for us, for the seniors in the community, but also for those kids and the programming that it. Well, next slide, please. I won't be much longer and won't bore you guys. Okay, so tourism products, we have invested in a smartphone app, and we have tablets, as you can see in my very purple photos, that can now be rented out at the Bush Plain. This is going to be really an interesting game changer because it's going to allow for accessibility, not just for mobility issues, in the respect that if you take one of these apps and you go through the tour, you can now see inside the aircraft with 360-degree views, whereas before you would have to just stare. So if you have mobility issues, now you can still be part of the whole thing. But on top of that, really, it's got the ability to assist people with visual disabilities, hearing. We've got it's got an audio and narration. And really what's the important part for tourism, language. So this app is translated and the tours on it are translated into English, French, Spanish, German, Hindi, and Benway. Sorry. So we have one tour for now. We will be adding kind of a scavenger hunt for gamification. We do have plans by the end of the year to add a second tour, which will be focused and in time for our 100th anniversary of the Ontario Provincial Air Service. And the intent with this is we can continue to add content. We can bring in maybe the Indigenous voice as a goal. We have a lot more opportunity to really create new. Any questions so far? Next slide, please. So if your tourists are looking for somewhere to get a really cool souvenir, our gift shop is awesome. It makes up, so the revenues generated from it make up about a $6 overall budget every year. It is a significant portion. Our retail manager, Rob, has done a fantastic job of really focusing on unique products. So he brings in a lot of unique toys, really good focus on STEM toys. lots of really fun apparel and great designs. But most importantly, he tries to focus on local suppliers. So we've got Hogan's Homestead in there. We've got the artist Tanya Kudo. We've got Indigenous artist Beth Berry, Amy Williams, Custom Keepsake, Maker North. So there's a real focus on local, and that's where we can continue to contribute back to the overall economy in Sault Ste. Last slide, please. So just to give you an idea on some of the upcoming projects for the Bush Plain. Right now we are in the midst of renovating our archive, which is not exactly the most exciting project for the public, but a very important one because we have an incredible archive of information, documentation, objects, and it is so beyond disorganized. It is not funny. So once we get this all renovated and get everything sorted, we have an online database. We will be able to allow people to access the database. We will have a library room so people can come in and do research, look at books and so on. There will be a lot more opportunity going forward. We do intend to renovate our Children's Flight Center. I had the opportunity of going on a bit of a tour of other museums last year. And one that really struck me was the Muskoka Discovery Center, which invested in an incredible kids space that really wasn't that large. And they said they increased their visitation by an hour. And I think our kids center is lovely and kids love it, but it's also about 12 years old. So it's time for a renew. So we are working on a project to do that. And also I have to get my big hairy goal is to start working on it next winter would be sort of renovation. I don't know if I'm going to be awesome and achieve that, but that's where we're headed. Finally, 2024 is the 100th anniversary of the Ontario Provincial Air Service. And if you don't know what the Ontario Provincial Air Service is, it's essentially what the MNR is now in terms of aviation and forest fire fighting. So the original hangar, not the part that we occupy, but the other part of the hangar, that was built in 1924, and that was the establishment of the Ontario Provincial Air Service. And it was really the first of its kind in Canada, certainly the first in Ontario, and it was revolutionary. What was done in that building moved bush planes, moved infrastructure building and access to remote communities in a completely different level. There was R&D done on floats and skis, water bombing came out of there. All those things started at Ontario Provincial Air Service. So we are going to be celebrating that unique centennial throughout 2024. We've got some exhibits, some little events, and then we're going to kind of culminate with the bigger Bush Plain Days. So that summarizes my little presentation. Did anyone have any questions?
I have one question and one wish list item for myself.
Okay.
I want to be selfish.
See what I can do.
What do you see as the challenge for you guys for say continue to grow visitation or make it a whatever 4-season attraction that maybe like that, you know, our mandate is to help build tourism. So and to understand the challenges that you guys face from firsthand knowledge.
I think so. You can tell me if I'm being incorrect here, but
Bear in mind, we're being live streamed.
I think it's important that, you know, we run, the Bush Plain is a nonprofit, but it still needs to be run as a business. And we still need to generate those funds to be able to reinvest in that business to continue to build up. So, you know, the Bush Plain is a wonderful facility right now, but it does need to continue to invest and refresh and develop to be able to continue to be a product that's going to draw people. I think from the other side where, you know, how do you get more people to go in there throughout the year? You know, I think a lot of the stuff we're doing with events and programming helps, But, it's that cross promotion. That's, part of why I'm here is that it's the hotel being able to talk about the bush plane with the guests that come through that maybe don't realize. We're continuing to invest in more marketing and trying to reach out to those guests, but it's also going to be that word of mouth that really drives people to the bush plane at the end of the day. And that goes hand in hand. We try to reciprocate in different ways with our hotel partners or other business partners within the community. And we certainly want to continue on that path. The more that we can do together, our other cultural group, we call it the cultural corridor, with all the other cultural attractions, we're trying to work together. We've got a meeting in June to discuss possibilities of how we can continue to develop tourism products and grow them.
Might be worth doing a shout too about the, I know we call it horticulture pass, but I know the group discount, right?
Yes, so there is that group discount. That is kind of the thing that we are going to be looking at is, is there something better that would really drive people? And I think that horticulture pass needs to, it's not utilized enough. It's utilization. It's a great thing to do, but it does need to drive and we gotta figure out a way to do that.
I'll just make one comment is, we do have a film, if you haven't seen it, it's included certainly in the bus tours, and it's wildfires. Well, we have just upgraded our Ranger Theater, which provides us with another opportunity to show other films. And when does Jane Goodall's film start?
Yeah, so we have a partnership with Science North, and Jane Goodall is going to, Jane Goodall's Reasons for Hope, that's the name of the film, will be airing probably beginning in July. They're not entirely certain when they're going to get it, but.
So that, how we continue to utilize that, and it's a complete theater, if you haven't been in there, it's like the old seats from the Cineplex. So it is a theater organization, and we put a lot of money into that. $80,000, if I remember correctly. So how we're going to utilize that and build traffic remains to be seen, but there's lots of opportunities there for that. And then as part of our strategic plan, we are still looking for that next wow factor. We haven't really come up with anything yet, but my answer to your question is that
Maybe my wish list thing could be your wow factor.
What would be good wall factor? Why don't you tell me?
I've lived in the sea most of my life, but I don't consider myself an outdoors, right? So I'm not the guy that would say, I'm gonna load up my boat, portage, and go fishing somewhere. But what would be awesome is if I can go down to the Bush Plane Center, pay for an admission to go up in the air with a bush plane. Land it on the river, take it around the city, and then right back to the Bush Plane Center.
So, the air operation has no cost.
No doubt. It wasn't very Smith, right?
That being said, we do have plans to reinvest for DOS to try to build up that overall waterfront a bit better. And that may breed an opportunity where an operator could potentially come in for that tourist.
It just makes me think of it, because when they had the speedboats, that was one of the probably, I don't know if I'm saying it right, funnest parts.
Yeah.
Because once they take off, you don't see them until they come back, right? But the next day when you pay your $100 or whatever it was, because I don't know, that was pretty cool.
well, for the Beaver event, we had the 75th Beaver anniversary last summer. We did have an operator come in, and he was full for the day, I believe. So it was pretty easy that it was taken forward at time. So it was obviously quite popular with people.
So that could be easy for me to sell from a hotel perspective. Say you want to do something fun, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, yeah. I think like we've got a real shortage of activities and basically venues for kids, and young families. So I think investing in that area you know, is money well spent. You know, if you guys are able to really take that up to the next level. You know, we really struggle here. So having something unique and interactive, I think could go a long way.
Is it playing indoors?
Definitely.
We're all playing.
A couple things about that. I think this is where the virtual concierge would be so valuable. It is so hard for, and I think we all see the amount of new Canadians we have working in our establishment that aren't great at communicating what a wonderful experience bush plane could be. But to have a virtual concierge where people can touch screen and then they get the wow factor, look at this, and a little bit of the history goes, and then scan a QR code and book your ticket right there. It's huge. It's not just for the bush plane, but I think it would probably benefit more than anyone else in the city, any other business.
Absolutely.
Is getting those virtual concierge. We just have to figure out a way to do it, and whether it would be something the city would have to pay for, or if it's individual business that would do it. There's a lot of moving parts there. And this is my ignorant question, because I don't know the answer. If I bring my family from St. Marie, do I pay the same as the family from Toronto?
Unless you're-
Well, I remember,
We've grown our membership quite significantly, but in the past year, it tripled.
And your memberships include science.
Yeah, they include access to Science North, but we also recently joined an organization called ROAM, ROAM. And they have partner meetings from Canada, the US, Europe. So that's a reciprocal agreement. So as with your membership, you'll be able to enter any.
so if you buy a membership at the Bush Plane, you get a free membership at Science Park.
Essentially.
Pretty. Sorry.
Well, access.
Not everything.
No.
I mean, it's a pretty cheap investment if you're gonna go to
It
Science
is,
North
and
or something.
we get a lot of people who join that. I've also heard repeatedly since we've added the programming that more and more people are saying memberships are truly worth it now. They didn't always feel they were worth it, but they're feeling like they're getting a real value out of it. So, and it's a great opportunity for us to have a revenue stream that, you know, adds some consistency to it.
Awesome, thanks, Jamie. It looks
Hey,
like
Nick.
Nick has a
Hi,
comment.
Jamie. I'm assuming I would be laughed out of the room with this next idea, but I'm not in the room, so it's okay. What is if I know it's probably not feasible, but I just had the idea because there's this hotel in Toronto that does a ceremony commemorating the end of the day. Every day they have this fancy bottle of champagne and they lop it off with a sword in this great ceremony. It like kind of where Don was heading. What does it cost to operate one flight with one water bombing on the river? Is if it not a daily thing, or is it once a week? I mean, people will be like, what the heck is going on there? Why is this happening? I want to see what this is all about. Daily water bombings that we drop on top of the Soo Locks tours. If that's possible, I'd pay to see it.
Yeah, like the investment. But you know, tourism dollars. I don't feel like the M&R is going to be on board with that.
Damn it. Okay. I just know every time I see it up in the air, it's a sight to behold, and it's definitely a draw.
We are continuing to hope the M&R will be able to schedule the water bomber for Bush Plane Day, because we understand that's an incredible draw. I mean, I remember the last time we were there, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was from off the bridge.
But
What about a hologram?
one day, if I can get my augmented reality working on this app, we could potentially have a hologram of a water bomber going by in front of the water park. So
Okay.
you can
Thank you for your time, for indulging me.
problem. I do have some collateral things here, so if anyone's interested in learning about our memberships and then summer camps and events and stuff
We
like
can
that.
pass them up for everybody.
I'll leave them here for you.
Yes, we'll pass them up.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you, Jamie, for your time and the wonderful presentation.
Right? Hologram might not be that unrealistic.
I'm serious, like I've said that coming across and they would do, I don't know if they would do practice exercises or whatever. That's why I almost drove off the bridge because I just watching the play.
That's not a great sound.
No, I understand that part. Just give you my own.
It is amazing.
It is pretty cool to watch, yeah.
Alana, are you doing the presentation for the Salty Marine or?
Can we do it? You would do it?
Go for it.
Well, in two batches, we did send everything for the internet, so I'll do the highlight reel and then open it up for questions. Timely because we just talked about mountain biking and looking to add in another event featuring our trails to the complement of summer lineup. So the event is called the Salty Marine Trails Festival. Going to be held on July 29th of this year. A quick overview. So the Salty Marine Trails Fest is being brought by Red Pine Tours. It's a one-day event being held at Hiawatha Highlands. It's using a portion of the newly developed mountain bike trails. It'll consist of mountain bike races, a running race, vendors, bike brand demonstrations, as well as food, drinks, and family fun. So as with a lot of race events, the atmosphere that goes along with it, creating that festival type environment is important because that's what really, solidifies your day. A race is a race, but afterwards having that festival type environment is important. So we're looking to do that. They're planning over a 4-year strategy to grow it out to become multi-day, looking at backcountry race and mountain bike clinics and increased distances for trail runners to expand it out. So this being year 1, it's a pilot year. They're looking to start small with the intent to grow. Hoping to have 200 plus locals coming out, 44 from the region is what they're predicting, 23 from across Ontario, 16 from Canada, and 23 from the US. They're asking for support for dollars to help market the event, as well as support to buy some timing equipment. We did ask them if there's an opportunity to share the equipment with the timing. Remember what we just did for the Community Strong, totally different piece, because Community Strong was looking for marathon equipment that was for looping. This is different. Apparently you can't share them. That's a thing.
No, it was different. Yeah.
Completely different. So we did go down that road. They're looking to have us put in 50% of the cost of the equipment and dollars towards marketing. When we put the TDF through the evaluation matrix, it came out at a score of 27, which is a recommended range of 2,000 to 5,000. Staff is recommending $3,500 to be used for marketing and the purchase of timing equipment and signage.
So I'm becoming very insincere with my conversations and it's starting to bother me, but I'm hoping that they get more than 23 Americans, because Lawrence and I were down at an event in Traverse City and I brought a whole bunch of their rack cards and actually was approaching people at the event and handing them out and talking to them. But it was funny because I find that every conversation I now have when I'm outside of the stew, I steer it back to the stew. And
That gets worse. It doesn't get
my wife was starting to get really annoyed. I'm like, yeah.
No, it's great. And you know what, that's how we needed to get a handful of people coming up from the States so that it starts to grow. They go home, tell their friends how awesome it is. And that's how these types of events start to take off.
I have a question about the marketing, whether this particular group has the ability to do a good job of marketing, or if you think tourism's going to support them.
We have actually, as of a couple months ago, started to really take a more proactive approach in the marketing and having them meet with Richard and sit down and go through a marketing plan. So we have a bit of skin in the game of where those dollars are being spent and how they're being spent. So we have done that.
Just to build off that point, I think it's becoming a real irritant.
It's tough.
would be the best word that I can use. What we're trying to do now is push events to market sooner. You know, let's hypothetically say you have a marathon. You should be marketing that at least 6 months out. And I think the complicated piece is, you know, we're getting the TDFs within 3 months. And the groups are relying on our funds to start the marketing. So we're trying to build in, certainly building in, actually, it's been really good. Our team is building templates that will be included on the applications. Like if you're doing a rack card, doesn't have to be prescriptive, but here are the things that you should consider. Here's an example of a social media post, all those kind of things. And then what we're trying to do is, you know, tell us what marketing you've been doing in advance of your application. And then if they're a multi-year player like this, then it's like, okay, you know, come January or what have you of next year, you know, maybe even earlier, you're at least putting this as a recommendation, because particularly in the summer, people start planning out their race season. They may even do it like, you know, in the fall.
Yeah, my summer's completely planned.
Yeah,
It's kind of where I was going from, I think, to being not a cyclist, but a marathoner. Once you start training, you have a very good idea early on when you're going to be ready for a peak.
yeah,
So you're going to pick races depending on where you want to travel. So that's a big part of it. So if you're controlling that, that's
yeah.
really important. And then I think from a timing perspective, as I said the last meeting, as long as we're not jamming everything in, as long as we look at time with them when they want to do it, which if we've done that in July, that makes sense. I think it's very supportive.
Yeah, and to their credit, they did provide a quite detailed plan as to where they have already marketed, so they're not just relying on us, they are in market already. They do have rack cards, like Travis said, that he brought down to the outdoor show. They were also, you pulled them out, but they've been distributed to a couple places. There's a nice long list of where they've done social media, targeted ads, website, so they are thinking in terms of how to grow this, and there's always opportunity to improve, but they're very engaged with our staff to try and make it work. Yeah, definitely.
Just like, sorry, last point. I think we've learned a lot with the TDF. Like it's been a real learning experience for us, and I think we'll continue to adapt it until, you know, we've got very clear criteria in terms of what we expect out of the applicants. And, you know, we've been talking about that basically since it's been rolled out, and we've been tweaking bits here and there. So I think we're, you know, hopefully in about 10 years, we'll get it right. But,
It's,
By the time we do our next strat plan.
yeah,
well, you learn, right? And
Couldn't you guys, couldn't we, I should say as a board, not you guys, but be more proactive and kind of put it out in the community to tell people, like, put a course of some sort together that we can say that, okay, you're interested in applying for the TDF, learn the steps and the timing and this and that, yeah, so that you do get, say, better quality applicants because they're prepared ahead of time. They know, yeah, I want to do an event. This is what it's going to take. This is the timing. So I got to have my ducks in a row. So like, okay, you can maybe clear up some of those timing issues when it comes to like a race for training, or, you know, events that would benefit from having, say, a longer marketing plan.
Even maybe too.
Whatever it is, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I'm just saying that as a means of saying, let us help you
yeah.
make a good application so you can have a more reasonable success of getting the funding.
I think that's a great idea. I think, I'm glad you brought that up, because as soon as you said it, it made me think, well, we should probably do a event planning or event operating 101 that would tie to that, you know, here's including marketing, you know, here's what we, because, you know, I think what we're finding is there's a lot of applicants that it's their first time doing an event, or they've got, they're not dedicated event organizers. They've got another job, or they're trying to do this off the side of their desk. There's a lot of education that goes into it. So I think that's really good.
You know, I look
Even
at
a PowerPoint that's
Yeah.
loaded up.
We're loaded up.
Great Lakes is 5 years and, you know, I'm on the committee and they're looking to take money from the charity to upgrade their pylons and their timing equipment. And I'm like, do you know how to apply for help for that? And they're like, well, you know, but it's, like everybody's got a full-time job. We just meet once a month at 4 o'clock to talk about the run. We want to grow it because we know it, all the money goes to Arch Hospital. And, but they're taking Arch Hospital money to buy $800 worth of cones and they're looking to upgrade their timing system. So getting it out there so people know how to apply for them. It would only be $1,000, but now that $1,000 for new cones is $1,000 more Arch at the hospital.
Right. But it build off of that too, like the second thought I had was like, because I've noticed there's been a couple of applications for timing equipment. Wouldn't that say be an asset that we can buy? And then either rent it at low cost or no cost or somebody can do that.
We have timing equipment, right? So we talked about upgrading it and allowing it. So Cintas has taken on 5-year sponsorship of the race. They even said they would store it, but I think, please jump in. There's so many different kinds of timing equipment in the race that not all, I don't think it's one fits all. If there was a master one that we could.
Or could maintain a list, saying, okay, these guys have this kind of equipment, Lord has this kind of equipment, and it can be like, you know, be the connector, like, you know, we can be the connector to say, okay, this guy has this.
And we do that. Yeah, like, cause now that we're starting to see more and more of these, we're keeping lists of where those assets are. For sure.
There's some really cool models up there too that you look at, like down in Traverse City. There's one you finish across the finishing line, there was a QR code for you got the results. So, which anyways, that's right, we've been looking into it, doing a lot of work on that side.
So going back to this event, they want to grow it out. Could they have a similar event in winter?
I'll probably do a fat bike one at some point.
Sorry.
The beer tents don't do so well on the outside, but
You don't want to spread ourselves too thin.
No, I mean, it's all about event.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easy to put an event in the summer, bring your shine, but winter, -40.
Like I said, I'm just speaking as a hotel, you know.
Yeah.
To fill in those.
We're getting lots of ski races.
No, I see that, yeah, that's fantastic.
Lots of curling events too.
There you go.
We should.
Yeah.
So, sorry, just to circle back to the self-memory that's in front of us. 2,000 plus recommendation is coming in at 3,500. Did anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, or want to veer in a different direction on this?
Just about the marketing, and do we know what the cost of timing equipment is? $3,500 an hour.
They're coming in, yes, so they're paying half, they're coming from $1,500. So we're putting in 1,500, they're putting in 1,500 for the 3,000, and then our remaining goes towards the marketing. So of that 3,500, 15 of it is carved out for.
That buying the right equipment to last for a 5-year.
Nick, you may know this for timing equipment, what they're looking to buy. Do you know the answer to that?
I don't have, sorry guys, I don't have that information, no.
Well, I think it's an opportunity to give them a start here. And we can.
Just if I can share it, the folks that are running at Red Pine Shores are avid cyclists that have competed in many races. I have confidence that they would know.
Great.
Yeah.
Because if it was you and I, we would.
I'll tell you right now, I would the old fashioned stopwatch.
Yeah, so these are the guys that I would probably go to act. Yeah.
Excellent. Any other comments, Jeff or Nick? Okay, so we can move on to the resolution. Sorry, I'm just verifying the resolution. Okay, perfect. So if we have no other questions or comments with regards to that, we'll move into our resolutions. The first one is with regards to the Algoma Trails Network approval for construction contract. The first one is that Creek-Cambrian Natural Surface Trails that we had previously looked at, and with the new city, we now have to go to the board with. The resolution before the board is be it resolved that Tourism Sault Ste. Marie agree to enter into contractual agreement with Creek-Cambrian Natural Surface Trails Inc. for the sum not to exceed $561,741 plus HST for the purpose of mountain bike trail construction and trail expansion in the Algoma Trail Network. Do I have a mover for this? Okay, John, and seconded by Leonard. And if I could call for a vote on this, all in favor? And motion carried. Okay, the second one before us is for the Holstein Trail. And that resolution reads, be it resolved that Tourism Sault Ste. Marie agree into a contractual agreement with Holstein Trail Company for the sum not to exceed $50,920 plus HST for the purpose of construction of mountain bike trails and youth skill zones in support of the expansion of the Algoma Trail Network. Do I have a mover for this one? Kevin and Chrissy? And I will call for a vote on this one. All in favor? Excellent. Thank you.
Just as a reminder, Lois had a particular conflict, so it's not a.
He's not a vote. Yeah. He abstained. The next one in front of us is with regards to the active transportation fund at Hiawatha Highlands Conservation, and that resolution reads as follows. Be it resolved that Tourism Sault Ste. Marie confirms the requirements of the Canada Active Transportation Fund Agreement and that Beverly Barber and Richard Walker be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of Tourism Sault Ste. Marie. Do I have a mover for this one? Lawrence and Tracy is the seconder. And I will call for a vote on this one. All in favor? And motion carried on that. The final one before us is for the Salty Marine Trails Festival to be held in July. And that resolution, the resolution reads, be it resolved that Tourism Sault Ste. Marie recommend a contribution of $3,500 through the Tourism Development Fund Conference and Special Event Stream to support the Salty Marine Trails Festival July 29th, 2023, and that a report be submitted to City Council for consideration and approval. Do I have a mover on this one? Kevin and seconder Dawn. And I will call for a vote. All in favor of this one. And motion carried. And Nick was an abstain on that one. Okay, that covers all of our resolutions today, guys. Thank you again for your time. Next week is the strat plan. Our next board meeting is June the 20th. If I could have a mover to adjourn. Don? And a seconder? Or and all in favor to call it a day. All right, thanks guys. Have a great day.